Well, here we are, back at it on the Spin Move iRacing Network, covering the Ghost Racing Cup Series. They went to Pocono this week, and, well, there's not a lot to know. We're going to cover what we can here on the Spin Move iRacing Network. And we're back. Welcome to the Spin Move iRacing Network Featured League Race Recap as we seek to cover the Ghost Racing Cup Series in their inaugural season on iRacing. My name is Zach, and over here is my partner David. David, say hello to the internet.
Welcome back, everybody. Good to be back with you, Zach. And Pocono, as you said, a race that a lot of things didn't quite happen as we expected, but happy to get into all of that and more with you coming up, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look here at the rundown as Ghost took on 200 miles at Pocono, the Ghost 200. We're going to talk, as we always do, the top finishers here, and we're also going to talk about the points recap. Who are they chasing and what has changed in the top 10 in points? There's not a lot to recap after Pocono, mainly because unfortunately this series is reverted back to old habits, and they're dying pretty hard as Pocono really was a race where we saw quite a number of cautions, a large number of incidences, tempers flaring, fenders wrinkled, and we're going to cover that here on the race recap show. And then we're also going to talk about possible solutions of how this league can maneuver and fix that. So that's the look at the rundown, and we're all now going to take a look here at the top finishers for our featured league. Dylan McDonald, after getting in a little bit of a how do we put this lightly, David? A tussle with race control at Dover. He had a pass through penalty to begin this race. He started from the rear and his mic was muted. So Dylan McDonald, in silence, makes sure to silence the doubters as he crosses the finish line first at Pocono. He had quite a bit of speed to be up there late, and Kyle Spees also making a late race run to the front of the finishing order. David, as you take a look here at the top 10, what's one driver that really stands out to you?
Looking through that top 10, Zach, one of the names that really stood out to me for a finisher that hasn't done well so far this season and hopefully is getting some momentum to swing their way is Cole Martin. Heading into this race, he hadn't had a finish above 29th. So for him to come in and get a top 10 finish is absolutely awesome. Hope to see more of that keeping up for him and hopefully some momentum shift heading his way.
Yeah, definitely some names up here in the top 10 that we're not really used to seeing. Kevin Gibney Jr., we have Joe David, we have Combe Martin, we have Mike Corveau. There's a few drivers up here that managed to secure a top 10 finish in what was a really chaotic race at Pocono, but nevertheless, you got to survive. So that's what those drivers did in order to secure a solid finishing position. But they were all chasing Dylan McDonald and Kyle Spees towards the end of this thing, making sure that the rest of the drivers weren't going to be tossed into the fray. It's really interesting the consistency we're seeing from some drivers, and maybe some. Well, now we're gonna start getting into the kind of the dog days of the regular season, right? Maybe a resurgence from some of these guys, like you mentioned, a Cole Martin that experienced some difficulty early on. Maybe he's turning the corner here following Pocono. David, any other insights from what we can glean here from the top 10?
I don't think there's a lot to really talk about from this top 10 in particular, just because of how the race played out. Congrats to all the drivers that made a top 10. You obviously found some spots on the track where you could run with some speed and then avoided a lot of trouble as we continued through Pocono.
Yeah, so let's move on and talk about points because they're going to be chasing Kyle Spies. They were chasing Kyle Spies going into Pocono. They're going to be chasing Kyle Spies leaving Pocono. And really, we're starting to see kind of the consistency of guys start to rise to the top. Guys like Kyle Gartner here in the top 10. Like we talked about earlier on in the season, he's probably going to be the benchmark for people of what it means to be consistent and to finish well consistently. And David, as you take a look at the top 10, they're all chasing Kyle, but what stands out to you as we now take a look here at the top 10?
You already mentioned it. Kyle Gartner. Here's a guy that is consistently finishing up near the front of the field where he needs to be in order to secure those playoff hopes. And at this point in the season, he has finishes that are showing he's consistent. Hasn't had a win yet. I believe, looking through the standings, I don't think he has a top 5 yet. So somebody like Kyle Gartner is going to really be, as you said, a benchmark for drivers that want to be consistent throughout the season and make playoffs, possibly without ever getting a win or without ever getting, those top 10s every week or those top 5s every week. Definitely hope to see Kyle Gartner up there, but I think he has what it takes if he doesn't get one of those.
Yeah, it's certainly a storyline as we continue on through the regular season, pushing playoff time. But regardless, some names up here that we need to take note of. We have a guy like Dylan McDonald who wins here and makes sure that he cements his name as one of the contenders of this series. So he's going to gain quite a bit of ground, not necessarily on Kyle Spies, as Spies finishes high up in the running order this week, but on the rest of the field. I'm also noticing, David, the growing numbers that we have to type in when we recap the top 10. Now it's 160 points between first and 10th. We haven't even gotten to recapping towards the bottom of the playoff grid. We just want to focus on the top 10 for a little while, but that gap back to 16th continues to grow. We have a fairly large gap right in the top 3. We have Chris Reese trailing by 82 points, and then we get to double digits. So it's kind of like Kyle, Trey, and Chris, and then the rest as the field continues forward. What do drivers have to do in order to kind of shrink that back up in the next few weeks?
So what I would advise drivers to really look at and think about and strategize more are the stage finishes. There are plenty of opportunities for 2 stages. Maybe you don't get first place. Maybe you look back at third. So let's say you get third in both stages. That's an extra 16 points that you can add to your total at the end of the day. And then you look at things like leading a lap giving you a bonus point, racing clean and getting those 0 incident bonus points. There's plenty of bonus points and extra ways to earn points. And then come the end of the race, you just have to be in position to have a good, consistent finish around that top 10. Maybe not inside, but definitely around.
So obviously our hope for this show is to maybe one day soon start to recap leagues that you and I don't race in. We are covering the Ghost Racing Cup series just because it's their inaugural season. It's a series that we're both in, and it's a season for us to really kind of concentrate on our craft here on the Spin Move iRacing Network. But we can, at least for this league, talk about our own specific driver solutions for what's going on in this league. And there was a point in this race at the end of stage 1 where I found myself trying to get a top 10 and really wanted that stage point. Just didn't have the car underneath me at the time to get a top 10. And what happened at the end of that stage is I stayed out and the rest of the field pitted. Well, guess what happened? I got to lead a lap, and that was my first lap led of the whole season. It'll probably be one of the last laps I lead all season, but regardless, I was able to get a lap and get a bonus point. Now, it would be the same as getting that one extra playoff point or that one extra point that we stack here in this series by finishing 10th. So I missed out on an opportunity for stage points, but you get creative about, okay, where can I find that extra point here? It's not clearly this race isn't going to be the race where we get that 0x bonus point. So will it come from randomly leading a lap? And for me, that's how I managed to gain something that wouldn't necessarily have been available for me any other way. But yeah, drivers really have to understand there's a lot of avenues for you to gather points and continue forward on days where the racing itself was difficult, to say the least. So let's pull up this rundown here again, and I am messing around with my buttons here, but all right, here we are. So we have the Ghost 200 Pocono recap. We've talked about the top finishers. We've talked about the points recap. Let's get into it, David. This one was ugly, and there's no way around it. This league has a roller coaster like season already. A few weeks ago, they went to Richmond and managed to rack up an insane amount of incident points, an insane amount of cautions. A race that dictated the field to go single file restarts, and it was on a track where many racers would look at and kind of be confused over and wonder. It's not that hard to race around here. What are we doing? And then they go to a tricky track like Dover, and they're pretty dang good. They managed to make their way around that track with a very minimum, I guess, they had cautions, but they had green flag runs as well. Very clean racing. Drivers were able to give others room at a track where nobody really expected it. And then you went to Pocono, and we were talking about in our pre-race show that we expected long green flag runs in this thing because Pocono's super wide and you're able to just manage the car really well. And oh man, we didn't see that at all coming from the Ghost Racing Cup Series. Talk to us, David, about a driver's perspective about what happened as we experienced a Richmond repeat here at Pocono.
I'm not sure how many drivers throughout the week took advantage of the practices at Pocono, but for sure, come race time, it seemed like everyone, even though there are multiple grooves, as you mentioned, the track is very wide here at Pocono, multiple grooves for drivers to go around. It seemed like everybody really wanted to focus on that lower section of the track. And then in turn two, of course, there isn't a whole lot of options, but we did see, especially later on as this race continued, drivers making too wide work. So at the start, I think there was some confusion as to, where is my braking point versus the driver in front of me? And then especially on those restarts, how close to the other driver on the bottom line, if that's where I want to race, can I get without being a problem? So really here, I think the big lesson is understanding where other drivers are. Tracks like Pocono or, road courses where there are hard braking points in some of these places, you have to look at, yes, your braking point may be a little bit farther ahead than the driver in front of you has anticipated, but that doesn't give you any more right or opportunity to run into the bumper of somebody in front of you or send it deeper into the corner and just hope that it sticks. So things that we have to think about as we move forward. I know that there is talk and discussion within the admin channels of this league to make some changes. We'll talk more about that coming up. Interested to hear your thoughts, what you might have seen happening, and how you think that we can move forward.
Yeah, ultimately, a big topic that was talked about from race control is the fact that there needs to be a bit more respect given out there on the virtual racetrack, where you have drivers that get ULs, they're caught in a caution situation, then they just kind of make their way back up through the field. They kind of bully their way through the field, and they're not really patient about how they make sure they keep their car clean, and they force issues. And we had drivers mad at other drivers for maybe being overly aggressive. You had just it was a mess from top to bottom. It was a mess, and really, from an analyst standpoint, when you look at a league like this, they are still trying to figure out in their inaugural season how to race with one another, and every track's going to be a new experience for these guys. And I think you brought up a good point with breaking points and understanding that, hey, for some of these guys, we've never raced with them before, so obviously taking advantage of those practice sessions more than just the hour before the race is really important. It's very difficult to really pin down as drivers, like, how do we fix this other than just being overly cautious? And you have to do that, right? You have to uh, say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice some speed. I'm going to give guys room. Maybe I'm not going to press the issue here at this point in the race. The old saying is you can't win it on lap one, but you can sure lose it. And a lot of drivers did lose it this week in the Ghost Racing Cup Series, as they had to take advantage of this really long track. Lots of cars were spent under caution, just sitting on pit road, getting repairs done, as we talked about in our pre-race show. And really, it was a very difficult race for drivers and spotters and sponsors, and to just watch and participate in. So hopefully this league can act on maybe some of the solutions that we're going to be talking about here, and move forward from this. We've seen it before, right? Where Greg Wood, the series admin, spoke some wisdom after Richmond. Drivers took it to heart and brought it to Dover, and it was a really good race. So perhaps we'll see that same pattern here with Ghost Racing Cup Series this coming week. So let's talk about solutions for this league, and what it might take for change to happen. David, if you could uh, put yourself in the shoes of an admin, right? You have this issue, and this league that's trying to get off the ground. It has sponsors. They're trying to impress sponsors. They're trying to build an audience. They're doing really well with viewers on SRM, sponsored by ESPN, and they're doing all the right things, right? And then the product on the racetrack is so up and down. One week you'll have a fantastic week with great side by side racing, and then the next week you'll have a Pocono or a Richmond. You as an admin, somebody from maybe the outside looking in, what would you be advising, or maybe putting into place as you take a look at this league, and wanting to shape it for the better moving forward?
So there have been discussions in the Discord already. I believe one of the suggestions that I saw was removing fast repairs. Personally, if I was the admin, I don't know if I would go that route, as it gives drivers that maybe just got caught up in somebody else's mess an opportunity to get back in the race and race clean like they know they can, and hopefully can demonstrate that they can from that point forward. Another discussion was iRacing has this great feature where you can set a maximum number of incident points that drivers are allowed to have for the entire race. I believe the discussion is still going through admin channels. I don't think I've seen an official announcement yet, but at some point, driver racks up, let's say, 16, 17 incident points. They would be given a black flag or complete disqualification in order to ensure that the racing on the track stays relatively clean, and drivers are maybe a bit more cautious and thinking about, do I want to be aggressive, especially early on in a race when I know that I have a very limited number of points. I think that is the way that I would go as an admin, to discourage the behavior, and then also empowering race control. If you see somebody on the track that is being overly aggressive, give them a warning. Offense number two, sit them out for a lap at worst. If this is repeated behavior, you've seen it over weeks and weeks, disqualify the driver. And at the very worst, they're just not changing at all, maybe remove a driver from the league.
Yeah, and I think the key will depend on how this league looks at race control, and goes, okay, we're going to empower you to make decisions. And ultimately, Greg is one of the best in the business in terms of being that fair and consistent presence at race control. So ultimately, his view, as he's stated multiple times, is that he's getting paid to enforce the rules that are there, and that's it. And if there are rules like that to be enforced, he will enforce them. But he's not just going to make something up. So yeah, this league kind of waits and hangs in the balance, trying to figure out, okay, what are the next choices moving forward. There's also talks about taking a look at who causes cautions right now in this specific NASCAR league. If you cause the caution, which is determined by race control or drivers just being honest and calling it out, then you get an EOL. Well, now there's talks about, okay, how many of them are you going to cause over a period of time, and then what do we do about that moving forward? So really interesting to see the ideas that are floating around in this Discord. And this is what, guys, this is what a healthy league looks like, right? They're not afraid to identify the problem, and instead of griping and complaining about it, the instant movement from this league is, how do we fix it? Who do we have in place to fix these issues? And that's something that we here at Spin Move iRacing Network really want to emphasize to anybody who's looking for a league, who is maybe new to iRacing, or maybe you're making a league on your own. This is a good pattern of behavior, right? To say there's a problem, and we're not going to let it fester and move into something that it shouldn't, or that it should boil over. Let's fix it. And the great thing about this particular league is that it's included team owners in that conversation. It's included the race control in that conversation, as well as the admin of the league. So very excited to see what the leadership of this league does moving forward. David, any final thoughts as we move away from Pocono, from the Ghost Racing Cup Series?
I want to be positive leaving Pocono. There were guys out there that absolutely had a fantastic race. Our top two finishers of Pocono did get those bonus points for no incidents. So, out of all the things that happened and tempers and moving forward, we got to put this race behind us. We have Las Vegas coming up. Just remember the things we learned at the short tracks, the things we're learning here at Pocono, and carry that forward to these next races. Like I said, we have Vegas coming up, fast track kind of races similar to Pocono, and the fact that you're in draft a lot, and turn 1 and 3 both require a little bit of braking as the run continues on. Keep those in mind and be as clean as you can be.
Absolutely. And so we're excited that we're leaving Pocono and going somewhere else. But regardless, there are a few things to really be positive about, to be excited about this league. So if you are new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. Underneath David over there somewhere is the URL to the Spin Move iRacing Network website. We want to encourage you to check that out. We are hopefully going to be announcing this week something new here on our YouTube channel that we're really excited to cover. And if you are interested, if you are affiliated with a league that wants some coverage in terms of post-race and pre-race recaps, there's information on our website in terms of how you can reach out to us. A little shameless plug for us, David. We don't ever get to do that here, so I think we're owed that every now and again. So, meanwhile, if you're interested in the Ghost Racing Cup Series as much as we are, we can't wait to see you again here on YouTube as we preview Las Vegas come next Wednesday. So that video will drop on Wednesday, race day for these guys. And in between now and then, guys, my name is Zach, and for my partner David, just remember to keep on racing.